I was talking a little bit about wine earlier, how I use these tomatillos sort of to give the same effect as wine because they're kind of tart. But one thing that I did want to mention, and thanks for bringing that up, is that you can totally deglaze this pan with beer, if you like that, and especially like a light Mexican beer. Not a real heavy beer, personally, but some of those lighter beers I think would be really nice in here, yeah. And then, you know, it's perfect, then you know what to drink with your pork green chili. Usually when you deglaze a pan with wine, you're just I don't even measure, but I always do enough to cover the bottom of the pan. And then once it's enough to cover, then I'm scraping the bottom and I reduce it by half so I get that nice acidic piece of it, and then go on with my broth or my tomatoes or something like that, yeah. Because what we're doing is we're not necessarily using the alcohol as a flavoring agent for the chili or the stew or the whatever we're making. We're really looking for that acid. Anything can be a deglazing liquid. So you could use balsamic vinegar, sherry wine vinegar. You can use a little, you can use fruit juices, you know, depending on what route you're going, orange juice or lemon juice or lime juice, things like that. It's all about getting these yummy brown bits off the bottom of the pan and giving balance in the sauce. So you can see that the meat is nicely caramelized, right? But really, we're after that. That's step one. But step two is this, that caramelization in the bottom of the pan. That separates, I hate this phrase, I mean, I don't hate it, but that separates the men from the boys type of thing. I mean, this is really what makes your cooking professional, is understanding that these brown bits have an enormous amount of flavor and contribution, and using those to develop your sauce or your soup or your stew or whatever it is that you're making. Okay, so I've got the onions in here, the garlic, and we have some nice brown bits that are still on the bottom of the pan. Not to interrupt you, Don, I'm sorry, I just didn't want them to burn. And then I'm going to add the green chilies that I peeled and seeded and diced. And then I'm going to add a little bit more chili powder. And you can put whatever spices you want in here. You know, we have in our rub, we have cumin, we have maybe coriander, we have oregano, whatever. But you can certainly add in more spices. This would be the time to do it, okay, when you're sauteing, because you need to, what I call, activate the spices, right? We need to get them fragrant. We need to get those volatile oils out. And so we do that in some sort of oil, you know, or some sort of heat. And so right before you add the liquid is when you want to go ahead and add any remaining spices that you want to add. A lot of times what we do in classical French cooking in making sauces and things is after we get all those brown bits on the bottom of the pan, we'll go ahead and use some wine to deglaze the bottom of the pan. And that we use the wine because it boils down and it forms this acid. You know, it gives a good balance to the richness or the heaviness of the sauce. And so that's sort of what this tomatillo does in pork green chili. I don't necessarily use the wine because I have the tomatillos, and that sort of adds that acid. You cut it up and chop it, and it has a very tart, sort of lemony flavor, and it melts down into stews or chilies or things like that, so it almost becomes invisible, but it adds a really it brightens up the chilies. I'm just cooking until I stop talking, so you could just stir it and then stir it and then add in the tomato, yeah. It doesn't have to be, because you know they sort of melt down, they're yummy, of the stew. All right, and then some chicken broth. Yes, you have to refrigerate it. But you could even, you didn't? No, then throw it away. Yeah. I'm sorry. If you have chicken broth like this, you only use a little bit. You have to refrigerate it? Yeah, you do. And then it only refrigerates well for like 7 to 10 days, but you can always take it out of here and throw it in a plastic container and throw it in your freezer. Or a plastic baggie. I'm going to put my cubes back in. And any liquid that comes in, put that in there too. That's all deliciousness. Yeah, you know, and it's ready in 4. It's really ready in 4. So if you have a Sunday and you did it in the morning and you want it for dinner, it's going to be ready. It's going to be ready in 4. But there's no harm in letting it go for 10, you know, on a nice low temperature. Yeah. So I wanted to also just address Don's question about the whole not getting it thick enough, like the green chili not getting thick enough. This recipe, the way I flour the pork, you'll see it makes a fairly thin not fairly thin, it makes a thinner pork green chili. And it depends on how you like it, okay? Is that too thin for you? So this is how it's gonna be with that amount of flour. If you want it thicker, then don't toss off as much flour, okay? As it depends. The other thing you can do is just let it simmer. And then it reduces down a little bit. And this freezes awesome. Freezes really great, so you can put it into containers and have it in the freezer and have really good, healthy food when you come home from work.